It's good to see you. All right. Hello, everyone. Good to see you virtually. Repeating my gratitude for technology so we can have this time together. Yeah, I'm gonna share some screen. Let's see if it works out okay. Let's see. Is it working right now? Can you see the slideshow?
It's loading.
Okay. So while it's loading, I hope you and your loved ones are well. And I'm looking forward to reflecting these concepts with you. Know that I enjoy reading and reflecting on Buddhist philosophy as a way of informing my life, but by no means I have any formal training in the sense that I'm not abbot, I'm not part of the order of interbeings. So I would really appreciate everyone's help in filling in with your wisdom so that this is an experience of co-creation. Is the screen visible now?
Still says it's loading.
It's still loading. Let's see. Last time we had these problems, which is why I was a little cautious. I'm gonna take one deep breath, and if it doesn't, I'll switch over to Chrome. Right now, I'm on Safari. So it's not showing right now, right?
No, it's still black. It says loading.
Okay, let's see if it likes Chrome better.
Yeah.
Okay, how about now?
Much better.
Okay, cool. So the lesson is use Chrome for the next time. All right, so part of the reason I made this PowerPoint is not only because I have very short-term memory and PowerPoint helps me out, but also it's a great way of sharing photos. I was going to dive right into Dharma talk, but I kept hearing this phantom question from people who may be curious. So how's Korea? Last time I gave a Dharma talk from Korea, not the last week, but the last time I was in Korea, I also gave a Dharma talk with some about Buddhist Korean Zen masters and temples, because I think it's kind of fun to learn about how Buddhism, when Buddhism is part of the mainstream culture, how it operates in another country. So I hope you enjoy these photos as a kind of an anthropological studies of how Buddhism is integrated into Korean society, and just as a kind of a fun appetizer to the main course of our Dharma talk. If you enjoy these photos, please check out Taoist Meditation Center's YouTube channel. There's where my Dharma talk on the Zen masters and Korean Buddhist temples are. Search for Taoist Meditation Center on YouTube, punch like and subscribe and all that. So this is me. This is when I arrived Tongdosa, which is UNESCO designated Buddhist temple that holds actually, I say allegedly, the remains, part of the remains of Buddha, and it's one of the biggest Buddhist temple in Korea. And this is the gate. And the art is stunning. I don't know how much you can tell from the photo. It's really intricate with a lot of mandala imageries. And if you look closer, it's kind of an interesting blend of Taoism and Buddhism in Korea. When a temple is designed, you'll see Taoists, Shinsan, that are like mountain spirits of like mountain elevated people who meditated a lot and kind of became part of the mountain. There's one guy with back scratcher and people reading scriptures that are part of the art of Buddhist temples. There are some temple images, paintings. So I went here last weekend with my parents, and I just wanted to share some of these photos. Oh, let's see. Yeah. And it was also the season of Ulambana. Maybe some of you would know. Ulambana is kind of the Buddhist and Taoist celebration of sending their love through Buddhist temple, love to the loved ones we lost through Buddhist temples. And it was kind of a synchronicity that I ended up stumbling upon that festival because I wasn't aware of Ulambana taking place. And this is not my photo. That's why it's such a good photograph. Because I was asked not to take photos inside the temple as Ulambana festival was unfolding. This is from a newspaper. And it was really touching to have the entire temple, the interior covered in all this black and white pieces or a thin piece of paper with the names of the deceased written and plastered all around the temple. And their monastics that are chanting, and their people who lost their loved one wanting to send love to their loved ones through this ceremony are seated on the other side of the monastics and praying and bowing. And it was really powerful to see walk into a Buddhist temple and see it just covered in people's names. And that's a great reminder of impermanence. Everybody is going through this process. And I loved seeing how Buddhist temple could be part of this collective grieving and healing processes. This was a temple the temple had many different buildings, and this was one of them that allowed me to take photos inside. There are all these lotus lamps with names of the people who also passed away, and there's this area of prayer. And if you're like me, I'm always fascinated by how anything like how Buddhism appears in different forms in different culture. And I don't know if you can see very well. I was kind of chuckling at the East Asian version of Siddhartha storytelling. I've watched a documentary saying that to make Buddha seem approachable, depending on which culture the Buddhism was transplanted, the paintings tend to depict Siddhartha Buddha as their ethnic group. So there's a Korean Siddhartha being born and announcing his birth, and everybody's wearing Korean clothes. And I was just kind of, I don't know, just was a little tickled at Korean version of Buddha. Oh, and this temple had all this stone plates of the scriptures that was transcribed by hand. It was like an ancient library full of stone plates with scriptures in Chinese character written and just piled up and was being kept this way. And I have to say the energy was really great. It's my mom and me walking down the library of Buddhist scripture. Oh yeah, this is a video just to show what it's like to kind of navigate this maze of a Buddhist temple library. And there are Koreans who keep sticking cash in the sutra, and there were signs around the library that says, please stop sticking cash between the ancient sutras. They're not welcomed, but it's kind of I guess, people trying to, like, tossing coins into the fountain for good luck kind of thing. But it was also kind of entertaining to me that like there was a sign, it's like, please stop sticking your your cache in between ancient sutras. So overall, it was a really peaceful experience, and I hope if you ever find Buddhism interesting as a cultural phenomenon, hope you can explore how Buddhism is alive in different forms around the world if you enjoy traveling. So that's my little appetizer of the Korean Buddhism. Hope you enjoyed. And tonight's main course, as Bobby kindly introduced, is I titled it Ironing Out the Kinks of Our Mind, Applying the Four Inverted Views Together. So you might ask, what are the four inverted views and why should we study the four inverted views? Or you may know all this stuff and it's old news, but indulge me as I introduce them. And just for fun, imagine me in like an infomercial. Like visualize me in black and white video part of the infomercial where I'm being clumsy, or Thai would call unskillful. So in this infomercial, I'm not being clumsy with stuff like in regular infomercial, like cabinet full of Tupperwares falling down on me as I open the cabinet, but I'm being clumsy with my perception. So here's the infomercial, me trying to sell the four inverted views and why we should study it. Have you ever caught yourself tunnel visioning the given situation, leading yourself to suffering? Here's my example. When I came home late at night one night, I think it was after facilitating Tuesday gathering, I noticed that the dishwasher and the sink were full of dirty dishes. It was my partner's turn to load and run the dishwasher that day, and feeling tired, I got all resentful and tunnel visiony, thinking, why do I have to pick up after everyone all the time? Is this how my life's gonna be forever? And that kind of moments is what I mean by the kinks of our mind in operation. So only if I had the four inverted views fully internalized and memorized, I could have saved some grief. Memorize yours now. So that's my sales pitch for the four inverted views. And so four inverted view is a concept. I don't get to say this word very often. Mnemonics, the four inverted views, by making it four categories of different perceptual mistakes that we commonly make. It helps us to remember our four common mistakes and helps us to straighten out our warped visions through that knowledge of four common patterns. And reflecting on the four inverted views tends to broaden our views, straighten out the funhouse mirror goggle that we like to wear without realizing. As I was using the other metaphor, I like to think that they iron out the kinks of our mind. So as I offered disclaimer earlier, I'm not Buddhist philosophy scholar, so I had to refer to some of the writings by the actual Buddhist philosophy scholar. And I have to thank Reverend Kuden of Forest City Zen Group of London, who had this beautiful writing on the four inverted views on their website. He is a Buddhist priest, ordinated in 2003, and is currently serving the Forest Zen group in London. So you can read his beautiful writing and really entertaining writing too in its entirety if you subscribe to the Awesome Meditation Center newsletter. The link should be already in your inbox as part of the newsletter. If you want to read more on his writing after this Dharma talk, just search for forestcityzen.org. Again, grateful for the technology and internet and whatnot. So here's some excerpts from Reverend Kuden's writing. In his writing, he introduces the four inverted views to be a great reminder of four common habitual patterns that distort our perceptions. And the reason we should study is that it's one of the really crucial concepts that even makes an appearance in the Heart Sutra. He says, he describes Heart Sutra to be very dense form of wisdom, that no sentence or words are there without a reason. And each word has different meanings implied, and there's a sentence in the Heart Sutra. Far apart from every inverted view, one dwells in nirvana. So straightening out the inverted view is part of entering the nirvana, or being more at peace, if you'd rather put it that way. That's part of the process, so it's a crucial concept. And just for fun, he talks about how inverted view makes an appearance in Pali Canon and the numerical discourses of Buddha. So it's definitely part of the central texts in Buddhism. For me, this is fun. I hope you guys find it interesting too. And in the Pali Canon, the four inverted view, the common distortion that happens in human perception is regarding impermanent phenomena as permanent, regarding phenomena as having self when they have no self, regarding unpleasant phenomena as pleasant, and regarding unwholesome phenomena as wholesome. And for me, I had to kind of reword it for myself to make it easy for me to reflect on. And this is an invitation for all of us. And this is what I wanted to do for our Dharma talk time. So our perception likes to mistake impermanent phenomena as permanent. Our perception likes to consider the state of our interbeing to be separate, discrete instances. And our perception, again, mistakes unpleasant phenomena to be pleasant and unwholesome phenomena to be wholesome. So these four cases, I think the best way of kind of exploring these concepts is to bring in your own perceptually clumsy or unskillful moments to apply these concepts and reflecting on it. And my invitation is for you to privately reflect on these four different categories, like when have I made this perceptual mistake, while also holding compassion for yourself, because, this is part of the canon of Buddhist scripture, because these mistakes are so common that they became part of the scripture. So if you make these mistakes, you're part of the majority of humans. And whenever I invite, whether that be Dallas Meditation Center, whenever I offer different workshops, whenever I invite people for reflection and discussion, I like to share my own reflection. Not that I necessarily enjoy sharing my low moments and clumsy perceptions, but I think it helps to start the engine of our collective reflection. So I hope you find it useful as I go through these categories and my own misperception that I'm associating with each category. So you already heard my wrinkly perception that needs to be ironed out in the example that I gave during the infomercial. Part of the suffering that I experienced when I saw the dishwasher not being loaded and sink full of dirty dishes was that my mind decided that this is going to be my life forever. Oh my God, that sucks so much. And that mistake of perceiving the given situation to be not just part of just something that happened here and now due to the conditions that accumulated for whatever reason. Adding this weirdly, there's this almost like a verbal tick that I notice in myself and sometimes in others too, to bring in the idea of forever. Oh my God, is this how it's going to be forever? Am I going to be in pain forever? Am I going to be uncomfortable forever? Am I going to be happy forever? So I think that could be a example for the category number one, confusing impermanent phenomena to be permanent mistake. So I'm gonna hold the space for let's do 5 deep breaths as you reflect. Is if any memory comes to you, if there was a time that you brought in, you always do this, or this is forever and that sucks. If you ever had that perceptual kind of misperception in your daily life. So hold the space to invite in the memories and reflections. No worries if the memory didn't come readily. I believe that sometimes our mind takes time to pull up memories, and you might start noticing just by making space to meditate with us and reflect with us. Another memory that came to me for category number one, considering impermanent phenomena to be permanent, is whenever my mom makes a big like a point by like having this cooking big breakfast whenever I'm visiting, and sometimes I'm like, Mom, I just want to sleep in. I'm in my 30s, and that's the conversation we have. But sometimes inviting in this perception of impermanence helps me to be truly grateful for, this breakfast is not going to happen forever. So that helps me to kind of bring in this additional kick of gratitude by straightening out this view. So that was category number one, but I forgot to make a additional disclaimer, which is at the bottom of the slide. To me, applying this 4 inverted view does affect me positively, emotionally, because often the distortion of our mind brings in additional suffering into our minds. But I am also reminding myself and everyone that the application of the 4 inverted view by no means is meant to be forceful emotional self-persuasion. Like if you find situations like, oh, the sink is full of dirty dishes, if you find it annoying, feel and be present with your annoyance. I'm not saying you have to straighten out your emotional reality using this concepts necessarily. If your mind gets lighter, great. If it doesn't, don't feel like you have to willfully change how you feel about it. There are all this research about how the rational thinking part and emotional governing part of our brain is overlapping, but often these systems operate with their own logics. So there's a limit to how much we can apply top-down thinking hard to change our mind approach to our emotional life. There is benefits to it, but know that by no means I'm not asking you to push away any of your emotions by applying the 4 inverted views. We aim to be accepting and understanding and compassionate towards our emotional reality. So I wanted to make that disclaimer before moving on to category number 2. So if I were to reflect on the time that I've mistaken something to be a complete discrete instance, rather than the state of interbeing, interconnectedness, how every phenomena are connected to one another and in operation with one another. Before I move forward, just to be safe, let me briefly introduce the definition of non-self. Reverend Kuden says the separateness is a delusion that phenomena has a property in and by themselves, and ability to persist and sustain themselves as independent of conditions. So my example of perceptual clumsiness would be, I keep using my parents as an example because that's the physical reality I'm inhabiting right now. Whenever my mom never knocks, so sometimes I'm nervous as I'm giving Dharma talk. It's the door is suddenly just open behind me. And whenever that annoyance arises, instead of considering that phenomenon of my mom barging in without warning after 30 plus years of me begging to knock the door, instead of considering that to be just separate, discrete instance of she never respects my privacy, when I think about how all these conditions had to come together for this instance to happen, it relieves some of my suffering. What I mean by that is that I remind myself of my grandparents' house, that where my mom didn't have her own room and all the doors were sliding doors. So the whole concept of privacy was very different from my mom. So if I were to reflect on those conditions and how they're all in the state of interbeing, which manifests as a form of her now fully understanding the concept of privacy, it relieves some of my suffering. So just acknowledging how complex even the small moments that arise in your life, how many conditions had to come together for that moment to happen, that relieves some suffering for me. So that's my example number 2. And example number 3 is, I feel like there's a lot of examples that can come from confusing unpleasant as pleasant. I personally am guilty of thinking that I enjoy overscheduling myself. I feel so productive. And I sometimes wonder whether number 3 can be applied to what produces immediate like dopamine reaction, whatever that we think feels good. So we might think that gambling feels good, like, oh, like jackpot, that feels good. But in the long run, it actually doesn't. And, if you have sweet tooth, maybe eating a pint of ice cream feels good at first, but it's actually unpleasant, because in long run, you're going to have sugar crash and so on. There was an interesting example that Reverend Kuden offered that was saying that also acknowledging that nothing is truly pleasant inherently is part of the practice for reflecting on category number 3. He used the example of warm shower. After cold winter day, warm shower, or maybe let's use the weather that you guys are facing. After hot summer day, cold shower may feel good, but if you have to stand in ice cold shower for an hour, and that would immediately become unpleasant. So being able to kind of straighten out your perception that tends to take pleasant and unpleasant as given, and in a short-term perspective, that could help us to actually make a choice that is more mindful. And that's what the category 3 is about. And category 4 is confusing unwholesome phenomena to be wholesome. And this is a little bit of a head scratcher for me. So I hope you guys can help me out too. So in Thich Nhat Hanh's The Heart of Buddha's teaching, he talks about watering the wholesome seeds and unwholesome seeds in our psyche. And I'm kind of interpreting this as that sometimes we think that certain activities are wholesome, as in it encourages harmony, creating qualities within ourselves. But sometimes what we realized we were doing was encouraging not so wholesome part of ourselves to be emerging rather than wholesome part. So this part is a little, I'm still reflecting on it, and I don't have a good example. So to borrow Reverend Kuden's take here, he deep dives into Sanskrit and everything, and I'm not going to get into that. But what he says is that the category number 4, inverted view, invites you to recognize that things, people, and places that we may find ourselves enchanted with are not intrinsically enchanting. And he says he uses the word enchanting because often we are in this state of hypnosis, of being kind of have a spell casted on ourselves to find something so captivating, and we don't see the big picture of, is this good? Is this having a good effect on me or not? So he continues to write. In this inverted view, we are enthralled with something or someone which does not merit having such a spell cast over us, but we somehow think this is the best thing that ever happened to us. So when I read that description, what came to me for number 4 is maybe confusing a relationship that is toxic to you to be a good one, and that's what came to my mind. So I think the difference between number 3 and number 4 is that number 3 is more about immediate pleasant versus unpleasant, while number 4 is more of a bigger picture, of longer term picture of, is this helping me to become a better person? And we often make a mistake in perceiving something to be helping us to become more wholesome person when it's really not. And there's this ways that our mind misperceives because we are human. So those are the 4 categories, breakdown and reflection, that I wanted to offer. Oh, I realized I didn't make space for you to privately reflect. So I'm going to hold the space for 10 deep breaths, just kind of reflecting on this all 4. And let's do that. Thank you for your reflection with me. Any memories coming to you? When have I confused something unpleasant to be pleasant, unwholesome to be wholesome? That was my 10 breath. If you'd like to continue your private reflection rather than joining a group discussion that I would like to invite us to, please feel free to indicate your wish to keep your personal reflection space by either placing your hand on your heart or declining to join any group. And I'm going to ask a question to Paul because it's kind of hard for me to see how many people are here. What size small group would be the best, do you think, Paul? Like 2, 3, 4?
Who's good?
Is that
3.
3? Great. So I invite you to form a group of 3 unless you don't want to be part of the group discussion. Sometimes conversation can help you to reflect. So that's the invitation here to share what came to your mind within your comfort and boundaries. And Paul, if you could have Cornell and me go to the breakout room for next 8 minutes or so, and then bring us back. That would be wonderful. So 8 minutes-ish of group discussion is what I'm inviting us to do. Thank you very much.